VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. Change and Challenge. A Journey Through Migration. Hosted by Amy Amantea, with special guest Lynda Todd.
So a big welcome to VocalEye, this almost live event. I'm your host, Amy Amantea, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm also the associate director here at VocalEye, and I'm your host for these almost live events. And I'm a member of this community, just like you all are, and I enjoy spending my Wednesdays with you very, very much. You make my weeks so much brighter and so much more interesting and so much more fun. And I love the bones of this space. So I hope that this space never ends for any of us. But here we are right now in this moment on a Wednesday night. So thank you all for joining us in this almost live space. Thank you all for sending letters of support and testimonials and donations. All of those things are so powerful and generous. We share them with our donors and funders. So thank you all for just supporting us. And if you happen to be joining us on our YouTube channel, you can also support us. You can sign up for our newsletters, you can hit like and subscribe, and you can share. You can make donations. There's all sorts of ways that you can check out VocalEye. You can even come to one of the theaters for our show and grab a headset if you'd like and check out the service for yourself. So we encourage you to, to join in the fun of VocalEye. VocalEye is broadcasting to you from the traditional and unceded stolen lands of the Coast Salish peoples. That's the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations in particular. So Vancouver has some interesting weather, we should say, because we live in a rainforest. So we have more rain than we have sunny days. Sometimes we have rain that comes down heavy. Sometimes we have rain that comes down light, sideways, hail. Sometimes we have sun that peeks through. And so as I was thinking about the rain that we have had on and off in different sort of rain patterns as of late, I was thinking about the concept of shelter, and how privileged I feel to have access to shelter and what that means for Indigenous communities. Because I was thinking about shelter and all the different ways we can define shelter. So here's what I discovered, and I'd like to share it with you. For Indigenous peoples, shelter encompasses more than just a physical structure. It includes the interconnectedness with land, water, family, culture, and identity, emphasizing the importance of belonging and well-being within a holistic context. So they have sort of a more detailed kind of expansion here. So if you're looking at beyond the physical structure, it says Indigenous homelessness isn't solely defined by the lack of a roof over one's head, but rather by disconnection from fundamental aspects of their identity and culture. If you're looking at land and place, shelter includes the relationship with the land, water, and place, as those are integral to language, culture, and identities. Family and kin. Strong family and community ties are critical to language, well-being, and shelter encompasses the ability to maintain these relationships. Cultural and spiritual connection. Indigenous peoples' connection to their culture, language, and spiritual practice is vital, and shelter should facilitate access to these elements. Identity and belonging. Shelter should foster a sense of belonging and identity, allowing individuals to thrive within their cultural context. Addressing colonial impacts. Indigenous homelessness is often rooted in historical trauma, systemic oppression, and the impacts of colonization, so solutions must address these root causes. Overrepresentation of shelters. Indigenous peoples in Canada are disproportionately represented in homeless shelters, highlighting the need for culturally responsive solutions. So this website has gone on to talk about shelters for victims of abuse. Indigenous shelters for victims of abuse play a crucial role in providing safe environments and culturally sensitive services, addressing the specific needs of this population. It shares a statistic of Indigenous peoples in Canada, including First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, who face homelessness at a disproportionate rate than anybody else who lives in Canada. This is according to a Canadian statistic, which says that from 2022, which says that 37.4% of First Nations people who were living on reservations were living in housing that was in need of major repair, and it forced those folks to move off of reservations, so away from culture, away from home, away from language, so outside of community, and they became overrepresented in shelters by leaving their community because of housing that was not up to par and needed major repairs. So that the state of repairs needed in reservations were not conducive to community and to life. And I think about that with my own privilege of having a home to live in. So I could go on and on with this because it's really interesting and really important stuff about talking about residential homes and the impact of trauma and all of that over 7 generations of people in Canada who are Indigenous, Métis or Inuit, and the impact on housing. So I wanted to just offer some of this information as we think about shelter, as I think about shelter, as I think about the privilege that I have. You know, as we've talked in this space about those of us who are moving, I'm going to be making a move, and what a privilege it is to be able to actually look for some place to move and have the time to be in a place and wait for the right place to come up to move to, and not everybody has that privilege. So I've been thinking about that in relationship to the weather and how difficult it must be to try and find shelter, whether that be in a homeless shelter or an unhoused shelter, or whether that be shelter within community and family in a place that is not sustainable to your existence. So that's what I wanted to offer in what I learned as I was reading more about shelter and its importance, not just as a dwelling, but as a community and family and all of the other things that comes with shelter. Tonight is another Wednesday. It's March the 26th, 2025. And tonight we're offering you our Almost Live event. It's number 177. Whew, that's a big number, 177. And tonight we invite Lynda Todd into our space. And the event is called Change and Challenge, A Journey Through Migration. So let's invite Lynda Todd, our special guest, into our Almost Live space. Come on in, my friend Lynda. Where are you, Lynda?
I'm right here.
You're right here. There's another square. There's another square on my screen. How are you this evening? You're joining us from the future, 3 hours ahead from Vancouver. But how was dinner tonight?
It was great. Yes.
It was great. Wonderful. What are the lottery numbers for tomorrow?
Oh, if I knew, I'm not sure. I'd be tempted to share, but
Yeah,
we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. You're not the only one in the space tonight that's joining from the future, so you're not alone. You're in humble company.
Excellent.
With some folks that join from the future. So Lynda, let's talk a bit about you and your background, because there are folks in the space who probably know you and folks in the space who you may be new to. So what do we need to know about Lynda Todd before we get started?
Oh, that is such a wide question.
That's why I ask it.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We'll start with the basics. I'm married.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married for 36 years.
Wow.
I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. And let me see what else. I am an artist. I am new to the art world just in the last 5 years. And it was I don't know, maybe some of your questions will lead into this, so I won't get into too much of the art specifics in this general answer. But art is, the talk tonight is obviously about art, but that's not been my lifelong mission, I guess. It's been more of a surprise, and is the best way to put it. What what else? I'm very involved in the community of people that have a variety of different abilities. And that is what my job is that I work for a nonprofit it's called Council for Persons with Disabilities. And I run a program that is, it's called Active Together. So it's about getting people out of their homes and engaged with recreational activity and socialization. And it's a program that's completely free because, as many, especially nowadays, but there's a lot of people that they just don't have the funds for fun stuff.
Yep.
And a lot of, so the program, there's no questions asked. We don't care, there's no forms, there's no membership fees. If you want to participate, you're welcome.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how did you find art then, Lynda?
So that was, I have a friend who is an artist. She's actually a world-renowned artist and judge in the art world, and she owned a gallery. And she was regularly asking me to take, one of her workshops or lessons and stuff. And I was not interested. So I am low vision and I am colorblind. So going into a painting studio, and which has more than two colors, only sounded like a nightmare to me. Nothing that just the overall thought of it brought zero enjoyment to me. I only saw frustration and that I would be dependent on someone guiding me, and I would have to ask questions constantly, and just no fun at all. So then it ties back to the program that I'm involved in. And I decided to have Val come in and run a workshop for painting. So although I personally wasn't interested, I knew that many of the people that came would be. Well, as it turns out, it was a lot of fun. And it was like, oh, this really wasn't as hard as I thought, in the sense as far as from my perspective.
Yeah.
Because colorblind is a spectrum, right? So I can see colors. I probably see them differently than the person who isn't colorblind. And then add in my low vision and the different issues with my eyes. And I see colors differently at different times. And there's just a whole bunch of things that go into that.
Right.
But but either way, it was a lot of fun. And then, as it turns out, she was running an all-day course that weekend. So I decided, what the heck, I was going to take it. Well, oh my goodness, it was so much fun. It was like just the fun continued. And apparently, being low vision and colorblind and not knowing any of the rules, like there's a color wheel and there's warm and cold colors, and there's just things that you do and don't do. Well, I don't know any of those rules. And so I would make colors and mix them and so on. And then, as it turns out, other people loved them. And even within the class, oh, that's so cool. How did you do that? And it's like, can I use that color? It's like, well, sure, of course you can. Like, I didn't, I just mixed it. I didn't make it up. Anyway, so then after the class, we had made several pieces, and she kept telling me that they were really, really good and I should enter them into contests. Well, I didn't believe her. She's my friend, and I just thought she was being nice and trying to keep encouraging me to do it. So this went on for months, and I was really having as fun as it was. It certainly, I didn't all of a sudden become, I just wasn't listening to her.
Yeah.
And so then one day she phoned me and she said, pack up your art pieces and I will be there. I'll be at your house in 20 minutes. So she then drove me to another gallery, and the curator took a look at the work and he offered me a solo show.
Very
So
nice.
he really appreciated. So now there's someone who doesn't know me, doesn't, not being a nice friend, and he's really encouraging me and offering me a show in his gallery. So then all of a sudden, I started taking it serious. It's like, okay, well, maybe there is something here. And then it's just kind of continued. I got other exhibits. I continued. Obviously, I had to create a lot more body of work to be able to fulfill the solo show at that time, and I did. And then the media caught wind of it. Low vision exhibit. Like people became enamored with, the blind girl that could do art.
Yep.
And that's basically what it, you know, so I, it just it just continued from there.
And now there's something also unique about the paintings that you create and how you make them accessible. So can you just share a bit about that before we jump into taking a wee gander at some of these paintings?
Sure. So that exhibit that I just made reference to, my very first solo exhibit, lots of people came to it, and people who were blind and low vision. And so there was this one person that came. She was completely blind and she'd never had any sight. Right? And she asked me to describe my art. So this is a problem for me because in the moment when I create the painting, I know what the colors are and I mix them, but I have certain techniques so I label everything. There's a certain process that I go through, right? But going back to that piece and asking me to describe it off the cuff can be difficult. I'm not going to necessarily get all the colors correctly. And also, how do you describe something to someone who's never seen a color? I can't say, well, the sun is yellow and the grass is green. She doesn't know what that is. So like that wasn't helpful. And I didn't have any that were that obvious anyway. They were more abstracts and so on. So I realized like I was completely stumped and I felt horrible. Here's this, great friend who's come to an art exhibit knowing she's not going to be able to see anything. And I really can't even give her a proper description. So that really bothered me. And I thought, and it's what gave me all the direction of how I do my art now, which is completely changed. But it took me a couple years. So, I felt awkward in the moment and a failure. But and I didn't want to, I knew I could fix it, but I had a lot of skills to develop to be able to do it. And, and what do I do? And I talked to other people about, creating tactile art. And they said, that's a stupid idea. It won't work. It's been done. There's a reason why nobody does it. And, everybody was basically telling me that it seemed anyway. And it still really nagged at me that, there's still so many people that can't enjoy art. So I started teaching myself about tactile art and working with modeling paste and different things so that so they may not be able to know what the colors are, but then they could actually feel my art. I wanted to make my art so that, and normally the rule is don't touch the art, and so I'm gone the opposite, right? I have signage and exhibits. Please touch the art, and you have to encourage people, even with the signage up, you have to actually give them permission again, because they've been trained since little children, right? Yeah. Don't touch the art. And so I wanted to make it so it was completely accessible so that you can feel it, having audio description, having everything done in Braille and in large print, having audio tours from SoundCloud, that people could just use a QR code and then get a description of the art. And as I later learned, even having the art hung lower so that people who use wheelchairs are able to reach it as well.
Well, I say we jump into the first image.
Okay.
You've taken photographs, so you've had photographs taken of your paintings. We're all used to that in this space. So Rick, let's bring up the first photograph, and Lynda's got the descriptions. We can't feel it through our screens, sadly, but we're going to talk about the process. So let's hear your description on this one, Lynda.
So the first piece is entitled Sun-Kissed, and it is a very large canvas. It's 4 feet square, so 4 feet by 4 feet, and a gallery canvas. And a gallery canvas, all that means is it's extra thick. So you don't really see the difference on that. Anyway, it's completely tactile in the sense, so there's at the top, there is a sun that actually, sorry, I'll give the overview. So Sun-Kissed depicts an African elephant, and it's emerging from tall grass. It's got great big tusks, and it's walking directly toward us off of the canvas. And it's illuminated by a setting sun. The elephant is a textured gray skin, and the tusks contrast against the sky. And the sky is blended colors of yellow, orange, and red. And they're pretty stark, like bright orange. So they're not lightly blended. They're clearly orange section or yellow section, orange and red. Which the colors that I use are dealing with more bright and contrast. Again, that's how I see better. And that's how it makes paintings kind of pop more. You know, if people want them as like a centerpiece in their room or a focal point. But also for those that are low vision, then I'm not using subtle colors. You know, you can definitely really see it. So then there's the blended, all the different textures and the colors of the blended grass. The blended long grasses are golds and greens. My series is focused on endangered species. So the African elephants, they face growing threats in their migration routes, making conservation crucial. And this African elephants are being forced to migrate to new homes due to hunters and poachers in the areas that they were calling home. And if you are able to see the image, in my opinion, that you can really see the textures on the canvas, even on the computer screen. This one shows the textures, I think, really, really well.
Rick, can you maybe zoom in on some parts of
If
this
you
elephant?
zoom in on the elephant trunk and some grass in that area, the trunk shows really well as far as the textures. The trunk was there, you know, and I really love. It's like, you know, working in textures like this. It's like going back in kindergarten and playing in the mud. It's just so much fun.
So you were
You know,
talking about using modeling clay for this. So can you just sort of walk through the process, Lynda? Like, do you put paint down first and modeling clay on top and then paint on top? Like, I don't understand how the process works. Because that would make it a really heavy canvas, wouldn't it?
they are very heavy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so much so that I now, fortunately, my husband is very handy and he recently retired. So doing these textured pieces, especially on the very large canvases, is extremely difficult. It's first of all, it makes them heavy, but it makes it hard, you know, because canvas moved, and so things would crack. It was really hard to get to develop the correct textures so that they dried properly.
Right.
And I would have to do them in really light layers to build up, and so that they wouldn't crack with the movement of the canvas. So now my husband builds me wooden panels. So they look like a canvas, but they're made out of birch wood.
Uh-huh.
So now they're really heavy, but
Yeah.
it makes my design job much, much easier.
Yes. Yeah, because you're not getting that moving canvas in the middle
Exactly. Yes.
as it dries. Yeah, of course, that makes total sense. Because if you're working on a piece that's 4x4, you're not finishing it all in one day, right?
No.
And letting it dry. So I think this sometimes is something that people think about when they're like, "Oh, it's a nice painting." You know, it's like you just finished it all in one day and you let it dry and you're done. It's like, yeah, that could have taken months to come back to over and over and over and, tweak and add more to it and all that kind of stuff that artists
Yeah.
do. So
Yep. And waiting for things to dry and then
waiting for
putting
things
on,
to dry.
like, if you look at the layers of all the layers of grass, it's all a variety of different colors and, different textures and lengths of grass. So that's all done. It's certainly not done all at once. It's done in
Yeah.
over multiple days. And once it's thoroughly dried.
So if we talk about the texture on the elephant's trunk, so if somebody hasn't seen or felt an elephant before, so the trunk kind of comes down, from the face of the elephant almost to the ground, right? And kind of a
Yep.
long, what do you call that? A long,
Kind of feels like sandpaper, even
yeah,
on the canvas.
yeah,
So if anyone knows what the feel of sandpaper is, then that would be like if there was a way to actually utilize putting sandpaper on there to represent the,
yeah.
the elephant skin, could it'd be a great product to use. It looks like sandpaper, really, and yeah.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Have you ever had the opportunity to touch an elephant before?
No, I have not actually touched an elephant.
I haven't either. When we get to the Q&A part, if anybody in the room has touched an elephant, I'd love to know what your experience is because it would be,
My brother lived in Thailand,
yeah.
and I should ask him actually, because he rode an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
So he obviously has touched an elephant.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, he's now since moved back, but I do have a picture of him. Yeah, he and his wife riding an elephant and boiling eggs in a hot spring.
Very cool. All right. I say we take a look at the next photo. That one is the
The
Wanderer.
Wanderer.
Yeah, the Wanderer. Let's have a look at the Wanderer.
So this one again is a 4 foot by 4 foot canvas, and it is um, a wolf, a white wolf, kind of really more grayish because there's a lot of shading and shadowing on him, but he would be described as a white wolf. In between uh, two red trees, bright red, a
Mm.
variety of different reds, walking or just standing, staring again straight ahead off the canvas and on a kind of a mossy, grassy ground. So the Wanderer portrays a white wolf positioned between two vivid red trees. The wolf is centrally placed on a dark background. So it's basically like a very dark brown background, creating a dramatic contrast with its white fur. The texture and the color used to enhance the presence of the trees add depth to the composition. Bright red strokes define the trees, balancing the stark black and white contrast of the wolf. This combination creates a striking and visually engaging piece. So there aren't really any bright red trees that I know of.
Mm.
This was just kind of a, I love red.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some days I can see red and some days I can't see red at all.
It's
Um,
a really deep red in my eyes. It's kind of like a mahogany kind of color, which is a red tree, but not this kind of red.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's very textured. And same as the wolf. It's very textured. It's you can really see, his hair, the hair of the wolf.
Right.
And then the mossy ground across the bottom is really very thick, and built up off the canvas.
It sure
So
it sure does make you want to touch the wolf. Like the hair, the texture of the hair. It
yeah.
makes you want to touch it like it's an animal right in front of you. And I just want to point out to folks that these are realistic. These aren't cartoony. They're not right. They're realistic as if somebody took a photograph of these animals. And my curiosity for you, Lynda, is are you painting these from memory, or are you sourcing an image and trying to match an image? Like how where does the imagery come from?
So not by memory. So I do have vision,
Yeah.
right? So I have some vision. So um yeah, so I will, I'll research different images
Yeah.
online of wolves and elephants and caribou, like there's other things coming up, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
and so um yeah, I will find images that I will like, and I'll enhance them or change them or use them in part,
Yeah.
and you can Google, I mean, elephants charging at you toward, I mean, they're kind of there's a billion images of, the elephant that I have kind of similar, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of the, uh,
Well, that makes sense. Then you get the proportions right, and it's not like you have a an elephant with one leg longer than the other, or you know what I mean, like
yes, yeah. And I'll
scale.
say, like, I originally started doing abstract, and
Yes.
even then, and so me getting to the point of doing um realistic, and thank you, by giving that description,
Yeah.
that was a major compliment, because I certainly never thought I would get to this point in my art.
Mm.
It was a big enough deal for me to just do abstract and put it out there for people to see. But what was the point of doing tactile abstract art for low vision or blind people to see? Right?
Right.
There's really little point. That just there'd be, you need something real. And so then that's what led me, this whole journey developing the tactile art. I was kind of forced to learn to not only do all the tactility and learn the variety of different things, and started working with resin and a bunch of different things, but also had to learn how to paint realistically.
Hmm. And when you are painting, Lynda, do you have your own studio that you're doing this in? Because this is like a lot of materials, a lot of large stuff. You got to leave, like, when I do art in my house, it sits on the kitchen table for a week and everybody gets mad at me, right? But I imagine you have your own specific space because stuff needs to be maybe left in
Yes,
proper
yeah, I
temperature,
do.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I took over half our basement, and
Yeah.
my husband made it into a studio, but it was our living quarters, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, our kitchen and our bedrooms and stuff are on the main floor of our house, but our TV and couch and area is our basement.
Hmm.
And so then as a family, right, that was cut in half because I made it into an art studio area.
Good
So
for you.
yeah, so fortunately my family is pretty easygoing, or they just realized there was no point saying anything else. I
That's
don't know,
right.
but yeah, you definitely need, it's not something, these are not things that you can, set up for an evening and put away at the end of the night. You've got
Yeah.
to be able to come and go and work on things, not only because they're works in progress, but, and, like, this grass and mossy area that's at the bottom of this, first of all, a 4 foot by 4 foot canvas is massive.
Hmm.
And um, it took, oh my goodness, I don't know, like at least a week, if not 2 weeks to dry. So that means it's got to lie flat and can't be moved.
Right.
So I actually have two working areas, right? Kind of a drying area and then a work area. And some pieces take, there was one piece, it took, it's not one of the images we'll be discussing tonight, but it took a month to dry.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely need a defined area.
Yeah, incredible. Let's take a look at Caribou.
Okay, so Caribou is on a gallery canvas, 2 feet by 4 feet, so half the size of what we were just looking at. And it is 2 caribou climbing over kind of a textured landscape. It's all done in earthy tones, and the textures are to form like a rough terrain and vegetation area. The caribou are painted in dark brown with highlights contrasting against the lighter background. So it's basically a white background. And the caribou, caribou are found across Canada, and they migrate as well. So this is part of my migration series.
Mm-hmm.
And each caribou, so one is facing straight forward, the other caribou is kind of walking toward to go up the hill, and they both have very large antlers. I'm not sure what else to describe about the caribou.
Yeah, I'm taking a closer look at the the terrain here. And what's really interesting to me is that it actually feels like, it looks like, it feels um, like a rock that you would be climbing. And what it reminds me of is in some parts of the world where it's not just like the plains where caribou migrate, they actually have to go up some of these rocky, sort of cliffy side type terrains
Yeah.
to stay away from predators. Just like they have those goats. You ever seen those? They have these National Geographic shows on these goats that like literally teeter on cliff edges, and you're like, how do they do that?
How do they do that? Yeah.
Following without falling.
Yeah.
Yeah, without falling. But there's a scale to these caribou that lets you know that they're massive. But in all 3 of these paintings, all of these animals have been staring in our direction. Like, I see you, back away. I notice you. You're getting in the way of my migration, kind of thing. I don't feel threatened, but I feel like they're telling me that they recognize that I'm on their territory.
Yeah, and it's interesting, until we started doing this, I didn't realize that I had, especially when like they're in order like this, right? And then as I look ahead at a couple others, they're forward, that I've done, this wasn't a theme that I intended, right? That they're all kind of like staring us down in a way, or looking into our soul, or, and there's there's words of description on how like they, that they're all coming forward off the canvas. It just, I don't know, it's a theme that I didn't do intentionally. I obviously like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I totally sense that. The other thing that I really like about this is, again, it's the contrast. The sky to me is kind of dusky but without color. It's like, when you kick up dust as you're walking on these rocky terrains, and it feels kind of dusky and dusty at the same time in the background. That's kind of the result that I get when I feel it. But the caribou stand out clearly against this contrast if you have some partial. Really.
Yeah, and if you were able to zoom in closer on this painting, so your description is interesting, because I'm not sure by doing a close-up if you'd be able to see the markings on the background. but
Mm.
there is kind of like swirls of white that kind of give it that description. So I don't know if you can
Oh,
actually,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So I think you picked up on it without realizing it.
Yeah, I know. I can kind of make them out now.
Yeah.
It's a
So
yeah. Interesting.
yeah. So I think that's really interesting that you picked up on something subtly that I intended,
Yeah.
but doesn't actually jump off the canvas, right? You have to really look for it, but it gave the effect that I was looking for. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
your observation is fascinating to me.
Well, we're both artists, Lynda, so we're speaking artist to each other. Yeah, very cool. I'd love to get my hands on these. Um, yeah, I had kind of put them in an order when you shared with me all these photos. It kind of made me feel like land to water to kind of idea. Um,
Okay.
that was just kind of my instinct, but
Yep.
because this next one is Monarch, which is land to air to.
Yeah.
I was trying to do it, but let's take a look at Monarch because they're all equally as stunning, I think. Um, but describe this one to us.
Okay. So, let me see. Actually, I didn't mark down the size of this canvas. I think it's the same size as the Caribou. So 2 feet by 4 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is called Monarch Skies. And it is to capture the journey of the monarch butterfly, um, basically against the blue expanse of the sky. And so you can um, see, so it's blue sky with great big clouds, like kind of, yeah, really huge clouds. Um, and the butterflies are flying across the canvas, and there is 7 butterflies, all different sizes. So these I made out of resin. They're all handcrafted and then hand painted monarch butterflies, and the butterflies are like orange and black and white. The white dots on their wings,
Mm-hmm.
and they look like they're just floating effortlessly across across the sky. Um, and just showing the elegance of the butterfly migrating. And the painting is basically a tribute to the endurance and the transformation and the beauty of the monarch. And they migrate, from Canada to Mexico every year. And there's like if you've ever seen the butterflies, it's worth looking up butterflies when they're in Mexico and there's millions of them, on the trees and stuff. It's very cool to see. But this, in a way, it's realistic, but it's kind of the clouds are over exaggerated in one sense. So the butterflies are basically realistic. And why I say over exaggerated, because there's the clouds are white and they're textured. And then there's a blue or a purple um, coloring underneath. And so I had to learn, well, each painting I've had to learn about how to do it. But being able to paint clouds, there was a ton of learning, and even actually to paint a sky, and even every time you paint a different sky, you have to learn different things. It's not nearly as easy as you would think, even painting a cloud, because my first clouds were really ugly, and I thought, why, like,
Hmm.
why is this so hard? I mean, it's just a cloud.
Yeah.
But all clouds, if you start looking at clouds, they're not all white. They are darker, and it's a purple hue underneath, right? Because the sun is shining from above and shining down, onto the cloud, and then underneath it's darker. And so, but to give contrast and not just have white blobs on the blue, then this is how I dealt with it.
Right. And also, in terms of being exaggerated, you've got one monarch butterfly that's like a third the size of a cloud. which we
Yes.
know would never be
Yep.
authentic, right?
Right.
You
But
would
it's to
never see
give
it.
the impression, right? The
Yeah,
butterflies are flying across the sky
that's
and they
right.
go from bigger to smaller.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. This is one that is quite exaggerated, I mean, because you would never be seeing the monarch up in the clouds like that.
No.
And even if they were flying all off, they'd probably be all as to our eye as tiny as the furthest one that's on there.
Yeah. Well,
You know, so
when I see it witnessed like this, I think about this large monarch butterfly that's, again, like if you think about the cloud as being, 3 times the size of this monarch butterfly on it,
yeah,
the size of the butterfly for me is like representative of the number of monarchs that would be going. So it's not, for me, that's not just one butterfly, that's like 10 million butterflies.
oh,
Yeah.
I should have you write all my descriptions for my website.
Well, I mean, that's that's the thing. It's like, we see what Steph used to always say is, just because we can see doesn't mean we do. And so for some people that is very true. And when I look at things from an artistic perspective, because I don't see the details, my mind goes to metaphors and things like that, because that's how I fill the gaps
Yeah,
with metaphor. So that's, I know that there's not 7 monarch butterflies that are going from Canada to Mexico. So the
yes,
different size of them for me is like a representative of the quantity of butterflies that might be making this migration. Which
yeah,
is kind of a cool thing, because you also don't want to paint 10 million butterflies on a
no.
canvas. That would take you forever. Especially these kind that like literally lift off the canvas, which is very cool.
Yeah, yeah. So these are all, yeah, attached and I have, the wings in different formations essentially to the
Yeah.
best that I was able to do. And then that gives it more depth to the whole painting
Yep.
and adds to, the butterflies flying right away from us. I
Mm-hmm.
guess uh and then people are able to feel and touch. And so far, no one, and I fully expect I put up signage as well, like don't panic if something falls off or breaks,
Yeah.
it's all fixable. And yet, nothing, no one has broken anything yet.
Yeah.
No one, it hasn't pulled off. Like we did have to experiment with a variety of different glues. Um, and we did have one, there's a painting coming up we'll discuss, and it's some fish. And so at that first exhibit that I had, it was in a place that didn't have air conditioning, and the exhibit was during the summer. So the heat in the place
Yeah.
melted the glue, so the fish fell off.
Oh, the unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, the unforeseen.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually pulled off from people touching it. It just melted.
Melted.
So lesson learned, we change glue.
You got to start doing your exhibitions in Vancouver, because I don't think that's going to be your biggest problem.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to have an exhibit in Vancouver. I was there in Expo in '86.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was there a couple years ago. So it was interesting seeing the change between '86 and 2 years ago. But it was still breathtakingly beautiful. So I would love to have an exhibit that I could actually attend as well.
Mm-hmm. They
Yeah.
were actually talking about Expo '86 on the news today because of the McBarge. Anybody in Vancouver knows about the McBarge, the floating McDonald's that was on a barge that was floating for Expo '86, and the atrocious condition it's in now, turned over on its side and half underwater, and
Oh, wow.
somewhere near Maple Ridge, and nobody knows who owns it, so nobody's claiming like, I'll take it out of the water. So it just sits there and leaks all contaminants. It's awful.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know anything about that. And I'll ask my husband if he recalls seeing it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really great piece. And one of the things that I remember being told about the space where the monarchs gather, you were talking about this and you said it's worth looking up and whatever, is
Yep.
that this was in a documentary where they were filming the experience of the butterflies coming out of cocoons and then hanging out, migration and all that kind of stuff. And so they're all roughly the color of, for this shot, they were all roughly the color of a maple leaf, so that rusty kind of red color.
Mm-hmm.
And they hang on the trees like leaves.
Yes.
So the trees are really, really tall and they hang on the trees like leaves, and they're so clustered on the trees that
Yeah.
you can't really tell one from the other. They're like blossoms,
Yep.
clustered.
It is, yes.
And when they start to move, it's like being in a wind tunnel when they start to move and fly away. And I just can't even imagine the experience of, if you were there, what that would be like. It also might be a little terrifying because it's millions of them
Yes.
crossing by you. But you know, they try not to disturb that, obviously. But you know, they set up cameras in there, and apparently you can feel the wind from like outside of these spaces for, you know, for a good distance outside of these spaces, just because of its the sheer number of butterflies. So it's probably a pretty special thing if you're able to be a documentarian that gets to be close enough to witness some of this stuff, which I will never be, but I can witness it through your paintings. Can we take a look at the polar guardian?
Yeah.
Polar guardian.
So, all right. So this is another 4 foot by 4 foot canvas. So this is a huge polar bear. And I have to say, I just love him.
Mhm.
So it's another one that is straightforward looking off the canvas.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, on my next series, I'm not sure if I'll, I may have to look at turning their heads a bit. So I don't know, but he's just so cuddly. You're really like, you just want to walk up and give him a big bear hug and get one back.
Yeah, he's
That's
not threatening looking.
No, no, he is not threatening looking at all. He's just so cute. And he's he's about 3.5 feet tall on the canvas, and it's just him. So it's a solid black canvas, and uh, and then he's standing there, straightforward, standing up on his hind legs, with one paw waving. It's just kind of upright, waving, and his other paw just tucked toward his chest. And then to the left of him, no, to the right of him, there's what's I get kind of what's representative of ice blocks, because he's, in the Arctic, and it's like all. I just left a design on the canvas, and it represents ice blocks.
Yeah.
So he's all textured with shading on him, showing the dimension, like his curves and his paw, like the paw pads and his nose and eyes and so on. Interesting fact about polar bears: they have black skin beneath their fur, which helps them absorb and retain heat from being in the cold. And so this piece, kind of an interesting, so there's a contest coming up, and it's a local artisan center, and the theme, you can enter anything you want. So it can be pottery or art, mixed media, whatever you want. But the only rule is the theme is you have to work within the theme. The theme is hand and eye. So I was thinking is I was going to submit this one. So there's a prize that's juried, and then there's the people's favorite. And I think this is an interesting take on hand and eye, right? It's paw and eye, and he's so cute, right? So
Could definitely be a people's favorite for sure.
I'm thinking that he might be a people's favorite, and I think people may find the unique twist on hand and eye of paw and eye, and that he's so cute that it might be a people's favorite. But if you see,
I have another twist on the theme for you, Lynda.
oh,
Ready?
what?
You can look at it with your eye and you can touch it with your hand.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Exactly.
I'm missing the obvious point.
You got it. Therefore, any of your paintings would qualify.
True.
But
I want to make it a little more obvious than that.
Yeah.
Right. But that one is obvious, but I'm still writing it down so I don't forget.
Yeah.
So, if there's any of these other pieces, or if people look at my website, I don't have my whole new series up on the website. I was waiting until the exhibit is done at the gallery. And then, so I have some of it up, but not all of the new one. Yeah, so
what was
this simple piece, because he's quite striking in person because it is so big.
Yeah.
And but it is simply a black and white piece.
Yeah.
Very monochrome, but I don't think you look at it and think, well, it's just black and white.
Now, is there texture on the black part of the canvas?
No, there is not.
Okay.
It is completely smooth. Just the bear is textured completely.
Okay. And how do you make the canvas part smooth? Because canvases in and of themselves have a texture.
Okay, so maybe
So it's just the texture of the canvas.
Completely smooth. Granted, it's pretty smooth.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Oh, that's
yeah,
fair.
but some pieces where I'm just looking here. So there are some pieces that I have that when I do want a really smooth or glossy look to it, and that's why I learned the resin. So I ended up, the resin, the butterflies are made out of resin. The Monarch Skies. If I'd wanted to give a shine to this piece, then I could have put resin on all of the black, and that would have made it, very icy smooth.
Right.
And given a shine. But I didn't want that look to this piece. I wanted it flat black.
Right. And just if somebody doesn't know what resin is, like, how do you make these butterflies out of resin? Do you use a mold? How do you do that?
Yes. So resin is it's basically a plastic. So you mix two chemicals together, and you mix two chemicals together, and then you can either pour it in a mold, which is what I did for the butterflies, which originally, when I learned resin, it was to resin over canvases to give them that glass, smooth glass look.
Yeah.
Without being glass. But then I changed to, everything being textured. So for the most part, and then I started, getting molds, or, you can even make bowls. You can make all kinds of things out of resin. Yeah. Jewelry, anywhere from, I don't make jewelry.
I do. That's why I know about resin.
Okay. Yeah. I bought jewelry molds. I did buy jewelry molds, but I was really just doing it for myself. Like a lot of the molds, it was just more out of interest because it is so much fun to, but I will tell you, my family, because resin, it's not difficult to do, but it's very exact then, as you know, right? You don't want, because you don't want bubbles in it. It ruins it, or hair or anything, and you have to make sure it dries properly and you keep it covered. But I had to buy a torch to get all the bubbles out, and especially on large pieces, on large canvases, I had to buy a torch, right? That puts out a really big flame.
Uh-huh.
So, um, my family was concerned that I would burn the house down, being low vision and using a torch, but the house is still standing.
That's good. Well, this is why I don't do anything with solder anymore, just in case.
I was aiming toward that.
Yeah. And
I haven't learned.
it's not because of the fire, it's just because if you keep the tool on and you knock it over or something,
Yes.
like a burning cigarette that just slowly smolders and before you know it, you know?
Yep.
That would be what would happen to me. It would be too close to a piece of paper and I'd walk away to do something else and right?
Yes. Yep. Exactly what my family's afraid of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Um,
it's been fine so far.
Yeah. This is why, I mean, I don't have an artist studio, but if I did, I would have, other artists in the space to work with, and that's also fun. Anyways, let's keep going, Lynda, because we got a couple more to share. So this one is Polar
Luminance. So
Luminance.
my
Oh,
daughter
there you go.
loves this piece, hates the name. I may have to change the name. She said, first of all, you named 2 paintings with polar in them. You need to get better with naming your paintings.
This is the first animal we've seen that doesn't have, it's not facing directly at us.
Right. Yeah. Which is a nice change, isn't it? So, yeah, I know. I had no idea I had done that. So, now, if everyone wants to look closely at the night sky while I'm talking and and tell me what you can see in the night sky. So, Polar Luminance is a textured painting of a polar bear against a night sky. The background is predominantly blue with swirling strokes resembling the starry night. So, if people are familiar with that famous painting, the polar bear is painted in white. There's not a whole lot of shadowing or shading on him. He's basically white, very textured, and he's just kind of standing there with his neck outstretched, looking up into the sky. Polar bears are they're a solitary animal with males and females only coming together to mate, and they just typically roam alone across the vast territories. So they're just that's what this is kind of depicting, a vast, dark territory, and he's just meandering around and looking up at the big sky.
Yeah. On his very small patch of ice.
Yes.
Getting smaller.
Now, what can you see in the sky?
For me, if I put on my magnifying glasses, I can tell that you've got different shades of blues mixed with whites. So it goes from different darker blues. Oh, I guess it's blue and white that are making the different shades of blues. But I see the swirls that you're talking about. That looks like the Van Gogh painting, the Starry Nights painting,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a abstract. So it's up at the top third of the painting, horizontally. That mimics. At first, when you look at it, it looks like it's waves of like wind, like literally waves of wind, but it's supposed to mimic the idea of patterns of stars and the night sky, the light bouncing off the stars of the night sky. But it's abstract, so
Yes. Yeah.
but
if you look, there is
tiny
the Big
bits of
Dipper.
stars. Yeah, I see. I wouldn't have made out the Big Dipper, but I see these little tiny like squares, which I think is what you're saying is the Big Dipper.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So they are just little tiny
yeah,
stars. They're not supposed to jump off the canvas.
Yeah, I see it.
Right. It was just like they might get seen and they might not.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know what the Big Dipper looks like in the sky, it's 5 stars. And they are they kind of shape a big spoon, but square shaped, like a
Yeah,
pot.
so there's a square of 4 stars,
Yeah.
and then a handle. And then there's a hand, like 1 star over. So that is, gives the perception of a handle,
Yeah.
as
And
if you like a soup ladle,
yeah, and
right? So
if
a
you were
Big
gonna
Dipper.
connect the dots, it would, yeah, that would make that shape, but it's just four stars in the sky, so there's no connecting the dots.
Yeah.
They don't move. The thing about these stars is they don't move. They're fixated, whereas other stars move in space. So, like the northern stars, the guiding star doesn't move.
Yeah.
But some stars move, and so these are the stars that ancient mariners and still today would do their charting from, because they didn't move. It's very cool
Yep.
that you added that in there. Now, I don't know where you can see the Big Dipper from the Arctic sky, because I've never been to the Arctic to see
No.
where it is. I wouldn't be able to see it anyways. But
Yeah, I didn't look if it's, I didn't I just put it in.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't look if that's
Yeah.
realistic or not.
It's representative, Lynda. I love that you put it in there. It's like a hidden puzzle.
Yes. Yeah. So
Very cool. Yeah, I like this one. The whites and the blues, for me, are as evocative as the whites and the blacks in terms of their color contrast.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Where are we
So
on?
next we have salmon, sea to stream. So this one is a whole bunch of salmon that are made out of resin and all different colors. So to represent the shades of salmon. So there's shades of brown and grays and reds to create realistic looking salmon.
Mm-hmm.
And they are attached onto the canvas, and all the background of the canvas is textured, and it's waves of water. So it's all blue and white with lots of white representing big waves. And the white, it's like blue, white, and green, and it's got 3, 6, 9, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8. It has 8. This picture has 8 canvas or 8 salmon on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be 9. You always do things in odd numbers. I think this picture might have been taken when that one salmon fell off that I mentioned, and we didn't. It's not put back on yet because just as a tip, unless there is 9 on there. But
I'm not seeing another.
yeah, I think there's just 8. So yeah, there should be 9. And it's just all 9 salmon are swimming upstream.
Yeah, so that's the theme of migration, the salmon swimming upstream.
Yes.
To spawn.
And they spawn. And so they hatch in fresh water and they migrate to the ocean and then return to fresh water to spawn.
They come back to the same place to spawn every time.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, like how they know to do that, right? It's there's so many unknowns that, the fish and animals and, like even the butterflies, how do they find their way to Mexico every year? Like
penguins, the same.
Yeah.
They find their way back.
Yeah. So penguins are in my new series.
Ah, very nice.
Yes. The penguins are fun. Yeah.
And there's all sorts of different penguins around the world. They're not just Arctic penguins.
No. Yeah.
Like there's African penguins. There are all sorts of penguins. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember going to Las Vegas one year and they had penguins. I was 14 years old. I had penguins in the, the yard of the hotel we were staying at. And I was like, penguins? It's Las Vegas. I had no idea that there were penguins. Warm climate penguins.
Yeah, and they're so soft. I have touched a penguin.
bring you back when the new series is out. All right, we got 2 left, Lynda. What's the
Okay.
next one?
So this one is a whooping crane. So
Ah,
this is called Majestic Flight. And it's a whooping crane with, it's got black and white and red feathers. The bird is depicted flying its wings extended, set against a blue background. So this canvas size is, I think it's 16 inches by 40 inches wide. And the whooping crane, it's spread its wings right across the whole canvas. So the tip of each wing is off of the canvas.
mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, full. And it's not coming at us, it's flying away.
It's migrating away from us.
It is migrating away from us.
So the blue background then, would that be the whooping crane in the sky or over water?
In my mind, I was doing it against the sky.
Okay. Very interesting, because I thought it was over water. This is what I love about art. No, it's just what I love about art. It's like
yeah,
subjectivity all over the place. I love it. And you can really see the textures in the white part of the wings. So the body is white, from the beak is dark, but the head,
yes.
the tail is white, and then the wings from the body to close to the tip is kind of like a creamy color, but the striations that go vertically along the wing are so textured, it's like a grass skirt.
Your descriptions are just
I've been
amazing.
doing it a long time.
Yeah.
I try and reference things that maybe people might have touched or experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like rattan, like a rattan chair or a grass skirt. It's just so it invites you to want to touch it. And I understand what you're talking about when you're like, please touch the art, and people are like, no, I can't. But I want to reach through my screen and touch it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's the reaction. Yeah, that's the reaction I want.
Yeah, I really.
But if you do that, I'm not replacing your screen.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I get the surprise bill in the mail. What?
Yeah.
It would probably be cheaper for me to buy the piece. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not.
That's always an option. Yes.
But it would be more expensive for me to ship the piece than to buy the piece. That's always expensive.
This is one of, I was very pleased with how this one turned out.
Yeah.
I did redo it 3 times to get it to the way I want it. Even though other people would see it and, they really liked it, and you as an artist know this then. First of all, it's really hard to get to know when a piece is finished and to walk away from it. That's one of the hardest lessons to learn. But this one, I actually completely redid 3 times before I was satisfied with it. And now I am. And now for you to have that reaction, just seeing the image on the screen, and not a very big image, really, like, that you're, I achieved what I wanted. So thank you for that.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. What part of it were you stuck on?
The wings.
The wings?
Yeah, it was the actual wings. It was really hard getting kind of realistic wings, but they're not exactly, I mean, they are kind of realistic, but not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like the first time I tried to get them really, really realistic, and that didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And then I tried to, I guess I just tried to improve on that. And anyway, I mean,
I think I think I get what you're saying, that you probably tried to make them look more like the shape of a feather.
Yes. Yeah.
And while this isn't perfectly the shape of a feather, the layering of it
gives the effect that I wanted.
Tells my mind that it's a feather.
Yeah. Yeah, because to do all those feathers, realistic feathers, all together in that really big wingspan, was, well, it was impossible for me. I found that out.
Yeah.
But it didn't, this, I'm happy with what, because again, remember, I'm going back to each piece I do is I've had to learn new techniques and new things. I'd never done, whole wings of feathers before,
Yeah.
So really just even having to do it over 3 times really wasn't so bad.
Right. Have you ever completely abandoned a piece and said, that's it, I'm done with this?
No, no, I haven't. And there's not many that I've even had to like redo on like, completely redo or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, going back to the polar bear one, Polar Luminance with the starring into the starry night.
Mm-hmm.
So I did originally have a completely different background. So the bear was exactly how I wanted. The ice how he was standing on was how I wanted. I knew I wanted the Big Dipper in there,
Mm-hmm.
and I had done a completely different background, and I did kind of dotted stars, and then, but I got overzealous and I did way too many, and then it just looked like he was standing in a snowstorm.
Right. Yep.
So I had repainted over the whole background, and then this, so that original technique was a fail. I will use it again somewhere else, but my objective on this piece was for not the polar bear to be standing in a snowstorm, and that was ending up the effect that I had.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
but I haven't abandoned in a piece.
Well, each one sounds like it's an opportunity to learn a new technique, and then if you just repurpose that technique into another piece,
Yes, exactly.
part of the journey.
Yep.
Okay, let's take a look at the last one. I think we're on the last one here. This one's my favorite.
Hopefully everybody's still awake.
It's my favorite. This one. What do we got here?
Okay, so this is called Nature's Mosaic, and it shows a sea turtle swimming over a textured ocean floor, but it's not a flat floor. It's kind of, he's swimming upward. It's kind of like a hill, I guess, an underwater hill. The turtle's shell is patterned with earthy tones, while its flippers and head have an intricate brown and yellow ochre design, and the background is a vivid blue, capturing that it's water. And the seabed is detailed combination of green to represent textured plants and corals. So this is maybe if you can zoom in on the seabed, because it's quite intricate patterns in it. And it's all textured.
Mm-hmm.
And the turtle is textured as well.
That turtle is so gorgeous to look at. With the different
Thank you.
different colors that you've got in there. Those contrasts of that, I think you called it ochre, which is a color that I would not, it's a name I would not have used for a color. But so that like taupes and the browns, and it's all just very cool. And for me, what I see in the water is the color changing from a darker blue to a lighter blue up into the top right hand corner.
Yeah.
It's like the sun coming in to the water.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. And then there's these like dark little shady patterns that I'm like, are those fish? Are those patches of light? What are those? But you could very foreseeably see them as like other sea life in the background, just leaving their shadowy whatever because they're being hit by the sun in a certain way.
So, and I love that you're able to pick up on the details, being low vision, that and I mean, I've no idea the spectrum of vision that you have, but that you're able to even pick up on the nuance of the lighter blue at the top, so light is coming into the water and it gets darker, to the seabed. And which is, you are seeing it correctly. And I love that you're able to pick up on that.
Sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. It's well, that's the thing sometimes with low vision, depending on what light you're in and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Things change for you, but I'm trying to get a real good close up with my magnifier on this seabed, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the bark of a tree, like texture wise. Again, I just want to touch it. I want to touch it. It's like naughty.
Okay, that's it. You need to find me an exhibit in Vancouver.
I just want to touch it. I want to touch it. Yeah, this is a Canada Council grant. This is not difficult. Not difficult. You should be able to do this. Especially if you tell them you want to partner with VocalEye to do your audio description tour. Then we can partner with something and our VocalEye describers can create some really wicked audio description with this. See where my brain goes.
Yeah. I've not ever applied to the Canada Council of the Arts for a grant. I have to Ontario grants and received them. I did, another conversation.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting that you mentioned that, and that VocalEye can do really cool audio description.
That's what we do. For
good
years.
To know.
Yeah, that is what we do.
Well, you've done pretty good audio description so far.
And I'm not even a professional. Well, there you go. Yeah, our professionals are pretty wicked. All right, Lynda. So that's the end of this highlight of this exhibition. So thank you for bringing these. Let's give Lynda a little applause. There we go. There we go. Applause. It's always funny when things don't line up at the same time, but we do the best.
Yeah. It was all good till you say, play the applause.
Play the applause. That's the magic of show business, of the Zoom show business. So Lynda, we've got some folks still left. I know that folks are in Tomorrowland already. So for folks who are still left, if you want to ask questions of Lynda or share comments, the space is yours to ask. Oh, we already got a hand from Ben. Ben is usually the first one to stick his hand up. Come on in, Ben.
Okay, Lynda.
Yes, Ben.
I have this question for you, and it's going to be cool. What inspired you to contact VocalEye, or what inspired you to contact VocalEye? Which was it you that contacted them, or was it VocalEye contacted you? That's the question.
I was not familiar with VocalEye. Actually, it was Amy, or was it Amy or Ramya, that contacted me.
That was me that found you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was quite surprised that I was not familiar with VocalEye, because I'm familiar with AMI and a variety in CCB, CNIB, like all kinds of things, and I'm usually in tune with what's going on, but VocalEye was new to me and they contacted me.
VocalEye is actually the first of its kind in Canada to do live audio description for live arts and cultural events.
And I did have a side question.
Got a side question,
Ben?
Ben?
The side question is, and I know I'm going to regret this, how many months did it take for you to put these all together?
So this most recent exhibition, which is called Migration 2, Change and Challenge. It was about a year in the making. So it's much bigger than what we showed tonight. So the exhibit, it's about 50 pieces, all ranging in sizes from say, I don't know, 12 by 36 up to 4 feet by 4 feet. The majority of my pieces are fairly big. So it was a year process,
Ah,
but not
well,
full time, right? Just to be clear. I mean, a lot of times I'm working on pieces and they take a week to dry before I can work on them again, or a few days. So it's a year process, but not full time.
ah, all right. Thank you,
Thanks.
both of you. Amy, good night.
Good night, Ben. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Nice
Bye.
chatting with you, Ben. I hope you enjoyed.
I enjoyed. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Lynda, you said you had 50
Thanks,
pieces.
Lynda.
Is that were you like contracted to have 50 pieces, or did you decide you wanted 50 pieces? Or did you just let the exhibition, like in your soul, decide, you know what, this feels good?
So the gallery where my exhibit is presently is the John Parrott Gallery in Bellevue.
Mm-hmm.
And I had applied and then I went down to it just to check it out. And when I entered in it, it was huge. I was like, oh my God. And then, so the curator asked me, if you're accepted, will you be able to fill the gallery? And I said, oh, yes, no problem.
Yep. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Amy
Don't
knows
worry about
right
that
away I was
later.
lying,
Yeah.
right?
Don't worry about that later.
I knew I was lying. She probably knew I was lying.
Yeah, yeah.
That like, as if I had all these, like, here. Anyway, so then I was awarded the exhibit, and so and then I start working away, but the whole time I'm just like, oh my God, how am I ever going to fill that gallery? How am I ever going to fill it? And then, so, and I would do these big pieces, and we had to rent a truck, right, to take them all down.
Mhm.
And um, anyway, as it turns out, I actually had created 60 pieces, and I had filled the gallery because I was so overzealous and so panicked that my art would look empty in this gallery, right?
Right.
Because that's, and my curator friend said, like, it's not a big deal. They'll just space the art out further. It's not like they're going to put them all really close together, but it's still, the exhibit room looks so big,
Mm.
and I thought, oh, I don't want to just show up and it, just looks empty. Well, it didn't look empty. There was 10 pieces that I think it was 10 anyway, that they couldn't even hang because I'd filled it. So
That's a good problem to
then
have.
it worked out great because on the opening day of the exhibit, on opening day, I sold 5.
Oh,
So there was already 5 pieces of the 10 that they could take and put up in place. So it worked out great.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some
But
other.
it wasn't a contracted number. It was I just kept producing because I was scared to make the gallery look empty.
Yep, I gotcha. I've been in that situation more than one time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Megan, then we'll go to Rita, then we'll go to Lori. Come on in, Megan.
Oh, that's awesome. I love those pictures. You really should do you should put the polar bear one. It's so cute in there in the contest. I really think you should. Anyway, okay. The reason why I thought because the sun kiss one with the African elephant in tall grass kind of remind me of the voodoo religion one, and the wonder the grayish white wolf in tall trees on mossy ground, and the caribou and the salmon kind of remind me of the First Nations. The butterflies kind of remind me of East and Air for Wicca, and the polar bears almost kind of remind me of Inuits. I don't know about their culture. I mean, I really love that. And what do you think of that? And where is the exhibit?
Pardon, where is the exhibit?
Yeah.
It's in Belleville, Ontario.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but
Where are you?
I'm Kelowna, BC.
Okay. Well, it's not that far of a flight.
No, you're right. I would love to. I love to. I have to see about that.
But you were here. We were just discussing, right? Amy said I
Yes.
need to be applying to the Canada Arts Council,
You gotta make that happen.
yeah, it's on my
Yeah.
bucket list.
All right. I hope so too. 'Cause I love to touch that art, no matter what.
Yep. I'll
See-
sign a support letter to partner with that, Lynda. We can make this happen. We can do this.
Yes, I'll help you out, Amy.
We can do this. Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
You're welcome.
Rita, come on in.
Hi, okay, this was really fascinating, Lynda. I really just an amazing selection of things that you've been doing. So I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, when you're creating it, you have it on a table, but when it's being at the exhibit hall, you're hanging them up on the wall, are they?
Yes.
Okay. So they're not likely to just fall down or something like that, or that kind of thing. Not too heavy for that. Okay.
No,
Now,
because
okay.
the systems that galleries have in place, they
Right.
deal with so many different art and weights and so on. They got great systems, so they're not going to fall down. Like maybe with mine, if someone yanks on something like the Salmon, they could pull it off, but that hasn't happened yet. But no, they're not too heavy. Even the ones that are made out of wood now, yeah, they're not too heavy.
Okay. The other thing is, a lot of museums, like, I've been to places like Smithsonian and stuff like that, and you get like a recorded something, you have something with an earphone and you just walk around as you get to an exhibit and it'll have a little description. So, I mean, of course, now, tonight, Amy was describing, you were describing, but, if we went to this kind of exhibit, even though it's tactile, it would be nice to have something with an audio description with it.
Right,
So
which I
that
do.
was-
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you do
my
have it.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Oh,
my
okay.
exhibit is completely accessible. So
Oh.
there are audio descriptions that you can listen to. There's a QR code, and so it's not an earpiece. You do need to have a phone that you can put
Okay.
the QR code, and then the audio description is my voice up on SoundCloud, and it will play. It'll play the description of the piece.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I hope Amy gets it into Vancouver. That would
Yeah,
be
now
nice.
I will say now, I thought I did a pretty good job on my audio descriptions. Yeah, so now I'm just going to put failure on that.
Oh,
and,
no.
And Amy will have to be recruited in the future, or we'll definitely get her to we'll aim on this Canada Council grants and audio descriptions and so on for sure, because she's opened my eyes on what can be, but as far as my exhibits on the present one and going forward, they will be 100% accessible. I don't think I've missed anything, and if I do think of anything else, I'll add that in as well. But
Right. Okay. Well, that sounded wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lori, come on in.
Audio now on mute.
Okay, I want to ask about the butterflies because I love butterflies. How big do you make them in your paintings? Are they pretty good sized butterflies, or because I can't see them, but I still love them?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other butterfly paintings I have, what the biggest ones are. So the painting that we had up on the screen tonight, so the butterflies ranged from, very tiny, like the size of, your baby fingernail, up to, say, the span of your hand. So about 6 inches.
Yeah, pretty good size.
Yeah, so I could say they range from, smallest to largest of in between. And other ones that I've done, well, the largest one that we saw tonight was, like I said, the span of your hand. That's as far as making them out of resin molds. That's the largest I have. And other ones that I'm drawing a blank on my other butterfly paintings.
So when you make them in a you make them in a mold like that, do they take long for them to like dry and then for you to paint them, or?
No, they basically dry overnight. You pour them, and they when they're half dried, I have to take them out of the mold and then shape them to how I want so that they look like they're fluttering wings and in movement. And then I position them and mold them to the shape that I want. And then they're dry the next day. And I'll probably wait another extra day just to make sure they're really, really dry and they don't pick up my fingerprints from handling them. And even then you want to use gloves. And then I paint them.
So is it
And you
hard
can
to
also
make?
put paints or colors within the resin as well, but that makes them, translucent and having, kind of unique colors. And then with the monarchs, I will paint the white dots on them.
Mhm.
Now, is it hard to make the wings with the molds? Because I remember how wings used to look on butterflies, but it's been so long. Is it hard to like remember to make them look right as a butterfly?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't. I think it was,
They're pretty authentic looking.
yeah, I think I think they're pretty authentic looking. I think it wasn't that hard. I think I did a pretty good job on them.
Which is something I could go see, but unfortunately I don't live in Canada. I live in the States, so it would be an awfully long flight. And everything, but thank
Well,
you.
I hope, see, right now it seems, I was talking to Amy at the beginning or earlier, and it seems that having a 100% accessible show and having tactile art and inviting people to touch it is new, and people are really enthralled with this concept. Hopefully,
love
in a year or in 5 years or 10 years, this isn't a new concept. It's just the way it is. So you don't, hopefully in a few years, you don't have to come to Canada to see my art, that there's a whole bunch of artists doing the same thing and making it accessible, that you can just go to the gallery in your own town and be able to feel and touch their art.
I think I would like that. The only place I've been able to touch, we had to wear gloves, was with the Wells Fargo Museum. We could touch one of the stagecoach, but we had to have gloves on to do it and stuff. So,
well, I understand. Yeah, I understand requiring gloves, right? Because everybody has, even if they have clean hands, there's oils on hands, and so then that will wear down the life of the art and so on. And I probably should request people to wear gloves for mine as well, but I don't want to get involved in that. We're just all hands on deck.
And sometimes you're touching things that are old, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They're not made
Yeah.
to be
So there's,
touched.
it makes sense that gloves are warranted in many cases.
I appreciate your art, and I didn't hear all of it because it was kind of in and out of the room, but what I got to hear, it sounded really interesting.
Well, you can always find it on YouTube, Lori.
I know where to find it.
You know where to find it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Awesome, friends. Wow. Lynda, it's been lovely having you share your art. I hope that this isn't the last time you're in the space, because I know you just continue to produce art. So, there's always room here for you to share some more of your work when you're ready to do that. So keep us in mind for future exhibitions or future shows or future projects that you're working on. But
I will. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for spending some time with us in the space and making your art accessible through this medium so that more folks learn about you and maybe can follow you on your website. And, the more people that know that folks are doing this stuff, the better, right?
It is. Yes.
Yeah. So that being said, have a lovely evening since you're joining us from the future. And, have a lovely night from VocalEye, and we can...
Audio now unmuted.
Thank
say
you.
goodnight to friends.
All right, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.